My siblings were always the golden ones, but uncovering their dirty little secret shattered the illusion, and my family will never recover. Growing up, I was always the one who didn't fit. My younger sibling, Alex, was the golden child, practically perfect in every way. They excelled at school without even trying, had a magnetic personality, and were showered with praise for everything they did. It wasn't just that Alex was the favorite, it was as if they were untouchable, a shining beacon in our family while I was left to fade into the shadows. Looking back, I can't even blame my parents entirely. Alex had a way of charming everyone they met, disarming people with their easy smile and quick wit. Meanwhile, I was awkward, always tripping over my words and second-guessing myself. Where Alex seemed to breeze through life effortlessly, I struggled to figure out who I was or where I fit in. I worked hard, harder than anyone realized, but my efforts always seemed to fall short. No matter what I achieved, it was never quite enough. If Alex got an A, I needed an A+. If Alex won an award, my accomplishments paled in comparison. It wasn't just that Alex outshone me. It was the way they turned their spotlight into a weapon. Whenever I came close to standing out, Alex would find a way to undercut me, subtly turning the narrative so that I was the screw-up and they were the savior. They didn't do it overtly, at least not at first. It was little things. "Oh, I think they just forgot to study," they'd say when I didn't do well on a test. Or, "They probably didn't mean it like that," when I upset someone. On the surface, it seemed like they were defending me, but I knew the truth. They were planting seeds of doubt, shaping how everyone saw me. By the time I hit my teenage years, I'd given up trying to compete. I became the problem child my parents had always believed I was. If they were going to see me as a disappointment no matter what, why bother trying to prove them wrong? I acted out, got into fights, and spent as much time as I could away from home. It was easier to lean into the role they'd assigned me than to keep fighting a losing battle. But everything changed when I left for college. For the first time, I was away from Alex, away from my parents, away from the constant comparisons. It was like stepping out of a dark room into the sunlight. I started to see myself in a new light, not as the screw-up or the problem child, but as someone who was capable, smart, and worthy of success. My grades improved, I made real friends, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. That's when the calls from home started. At first, they seemed normal, quick updates from my parents about what was happening in the family. But soon, the tone shifted. My parents started questioning me about things I hadn't done, accusing me of causing trouble or being irresponsible. I was confused. I hadn't been home in months. How could I possibly be causing problems? It didn't take long to figure out what was happening. Alex was still playing their games, even from miles away. They were planting seeds of doubt, just like they always had, making me the scapegoat for whatever was going wrong at home. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it didn't matter anymore. I was building a new life, one where my parents' opinions didn't define me. But it was harder than I expected. No matter how far I ran, the weight of my family's expectations and disappointments followed me. I wanted to cut ties completely, but a part of me still hoped things could change. A part of me still wanted their approval, even if I didn't want to admit it. The breaking point came late one night during my sophomore year. I was studying for an exam when my phone buzzed. It was my aunt, someone I had always been close to but hadn't spoken with in a while. Her voice was tense, almost nervous, as she told me what she'd discovered. Alex wasn't just manipulating our parents, they were involved in something far worse. My sibling, the golden child, was running a secret business. Not a legitimate one, though. They were laundering money, scamming people, and using their perfect image to cover it all up. And to make matters worse, they had been shifting blame onto me whenever things got too close to home. I was stunned. Alex had always been cunning, but this was on a whole different level. The golden child wasn't just a fraud, they were a criminal. And yet, even with this bombshell, I wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to expose them right then and there, to finally prove to my parents that I wasn't the problem. But another part of me hesitated. This wasn't just about me anymore. If I blew the whistle, it could destroy our family completely. For weeks, I wrestled with the truth, unsure of how to move forward. I started gathering evidence, piecing together the details of Alex's schemes. Late at night, I would sit in my dorm room, poring over documents, screenshots, and anything else I could find. It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally, but I couldn't let it go. I needed to be prepared for whatever came next. Then, over winter break, I decided to go home. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, closure, maybe, or some kind of resolution. But what I found was far worse than I had imagined. While my parents were out one afternoon, I stumbled across Alex's hidden files on our family computer. Bank statements, fake business accounts, and a trail of transactions that painted a damning picture. It was all there, laid out in black and white. The weight of it all hit me like a freight train. My sibling, the person I had spent my entire life comparing myself to, wasn't just flawed, they were dangerous. And my parents had no idea. Or maybe they did, and they just didn't want to see it. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Alex get away with it any longer. But I wasn't going to destroy our family, either. Instead, I came up with a plan. One that would force my parents to face the truth without tearing everything apart. The next day, I confronted Alex directly. We were alone in the house, and I laid out everything I knew. At first, they tried to deny it, but when I showed them the evidence, their mask slipped. For the first time, I saw the real Alex, not the charming, golden child, but the manipulative, self-serving person they truly were. They didn't apologize or show any remorse. Instead, they accused me of trying to ruin their life, as if I were the one in the wrong. It was in that moment that I realized something important. Alex wasn't going to change. They had spent their entire life perfecting the art of manipulation, and they weren't about to stop now. If I wanted to protect myself, and my family, I had to take matters into my own hands. That evening, I sat my parents down and told them everything. I showed them the evidence, explained the scams, and laid out the full extent of Alex's deception. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Watching the disbelief and heartbreak on their faces was almost unbearable. For years, they had put Alex on a pedestal, and now that pedestal was crumbling beneath them. But the hardest part came next. My parents, even with all the evidence in front of them, couldn't bring themselves to fully turn on Alex. They were hurt, yes, but they were also protective. They didn't want to believe that their golden child could do something so terrible. And in that moment, I realized that no matter what I did, I would always be the outsider in my own family. It wasn't easy, but I accepted it. I had spent my entire life trying to prove my worth to people who were never going to see me for who I truly was. And now, I was done. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had already proven to myself that I was capable, strong, and deserving of love. In the months that followed, I distanced myself from my family. It wasn't a clean break, we still talk occasionally, but I've learned to set boundaries. I've stopped trying to fix things that aren't mine to fix. Instead, I've focused on building a life that's truly mine, surrounded by people who see me for who I am, not who they want me to be. As for Alex, their perfect image has started to crack. The truth has a way of coming out, no matter how hard you try to hide it. And while my parents may never fully see them for who they are, I know the truth. And that's enough. In the end, I've found peace, not in my family, but in myself. I may have been the black sheep, but now, I'm the one who stands tall.